Councilmember Khamis.
Yeah, first I want to thank you, Jackie, and your staff. You seem to take on the most passionate and most tough issues that we face here on City Council every month, and like my colleagues, we all want to do something to help solve the homelessness issues. And I know in the past few years that I've been on City Council, we have put our money where our mouth is, and we've created lots of new projects at your with all of the research you've done. We've created the Santa Clara Hotel, right, the Plaza Hotel, I think we approved a veterans homeless project that's on 2nd Street recently that hopefully will be built in a fairly quick amount of time. So for those who think we're sitting around doing nothing, I beg to differ with you. Are we doing enough? I think we should be doing more. But I have concerns about the current, I'm trying to weigh these two options. Quite frankly, I've been listening to all this dialogue very, very intently because I haven't really made up my mind one way or the other. I know which way I'm leaning, but I do need a little more information before I feel comfortable making a decision. I've supported almost every project that you've brought across the desk, and I think we need to continue to do more. But what happens to the interim housing structures? Like you said, in 15 years, we're spending $15 million on building these structures. What happens to the structures once we decide to build permanent housing there? Are we just going to bulldoze them?
Well, ideally, in 15 years, if we could find another site where, because they do have a longer life than 15 years, if we could ideally find someplace else that we could relocate them and it made sense to do that, we would look for that opportunity.
So they're movable?
They are. They're
okay.
Movable.
All right. I have another concern. I mean, in 15 years' time, people may get attached to these units and may not want us to build, higher density structures. I mean, look what's happening with our mobile home ordinance, right? I mean, we have been discussing making some mobile home parks higher density, providing a lot more potential homes per acre than what mobile home parks allow us today. And we don't own those properties, and we can't make any headway on not even doing one project. This is something that we own, and so we will be less likely to make tough decisions later on. I think. I mean, as a council member, it's tough to work on the mobile home issue, and we're being sued every single week to try to get us off the dime and to actually convert these properties, right? They're using every legal means, and this one, when it comes time when the 15 years are up, who's to say whether the city council is going to have the political fortitude to move forward if somebody says you're taking down my house? Don't do it. And that's another concern of mine that I don't know how you can address because it's going to come up 15 years later.
Sure. I mean, the difference is that these are not homes that are going to be owned by the residents. They're manufactured homes that the city and Abode will have an ownership interest in. And so, I think when you ask the person, would you prefer to live in a shared housing environment, so where you're living with 5 other people, or would you prefer to live in your own studio or your own 1-bedroom apartment and it's brand new? My guess is that many people would choose to move out. And we're going to have an experience because we're going to know after the first 2 years. I mean, personally, I think it's going to be great if we create this community feeling where people really love to live there. But one of the things that Key from the county brought up, in order to help the transition between the residents that are going to be living there and their new homes, is that he's going to work with us to assign case managers that are actually going to be the case managers where we're going to be targeting people to move into. So we know what the first developments are going to be coming online. We know Second Street will be most likely the first. And so we're going to have case managers that are going to be working with the residents to help them prepare for when Second Street comes forward. And we think they're going to be excited to want to move in. And we'll get some experience knowing how that transition happens. But our proposal is to start planning for the transition for the permanent housing in year 10, because we already told you it was going to take us significant time. So 5 years in advance, we're going to start making those plans, and we're going to start planning for that permanent site. So we're going to have a lot of experience between now and the year 15 when we have to shut this development down.
Well, granted, we're going to have a lot of experience. I've gotten some experience with abode recently in my own district, and I thank you for putting together the meeting that I had about the concerns that I had in my own district with one of the projects that they oversee. And I'm assured that things are going to go better in the future. But now that we have an open line of communication, but quite frankly, they were dropping the ball in the past, and I'm hoping that this project won't be met with that kind of lack of communication, because something like that it's going to be like it's a highlight of the city, and people will have all kinds of scrutiny on it. And I'm hoping that you have the confidence in abode that I don't currently have as yet. I'm hoping that they prove themselves to be good stewards of making people accountable. I definitely would like to see people that are causing trouble to be evicted if they're dealing drugs inside their apartment complex and causing nuisances for other tenants, homeless or otherwise. And that's one of the things that I really want to stress on this. As far as the financial commitment, you had said several times that you put out a FO something, $48 million request for projects. Why can't we use the $48 million on this project to make it permanent?
Well, the $48 million, well, actually the $40 million is city money. And we came before you earlier, I guess last year, where we put out a plan and we said, because the need is so great, Council, we're going to prioritize $40 million for supportive housing. So we're not proposing $40 million worth of development on Evans Lane. So if you were to decide today that you wanted to go forward with the alternative proposal, option 2, to develop permanent housing, I'm confident that we would have the resources, because it's going to take us 4 to 5 years before those developers would need those funds. So we would take the 12 to 15 million that we have now in order to fund the supportive development, the interim development, and could use that as a commitment to get the permanent development of 100% supportive housing moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's another thing, because if we decide to do permanent housing, we do have $15 million to start. And while we're on a topic of CEQA, we don't have to do CEQA with this current with the temporary.
We completed that process when we took it forward with the general plan. But
Okay.
because the option 2 requires us to increase the density and to change the general plan again, we are going to have to redo the environmental review for it for the much denser, which, and I would agree, makes sense for the permanent development. We absolutely support that, and we would have to redo the CEQA and do a new general plan.
Yeah, my concern is opportunity loss here. I mean, 15 years from now, I don't know who the future council is going to be. I know we have the money now. I know that we would have to wait longer for our permanent structures to be built, absolutely. As far as the CEQA process is concerned, the general plan change that we decided, and you know, I voted for it because you recommended it. Why didn't we go forward with a dual track, like put forward two proposals, temporary and permanent, side by side, for the last go around?
That's a really good question, because we actually can't do that. So if we're proposing a permanent development, which we were not at the time we moved forward with the CEQA, you can't piecemeal your CEQA. You can't say, for this development, we're going to start it. You have to actually do the environmental review for the final development that you're going to be working on, which would have been the permanent if we decided to go with this two-track approach. So because the direction was to try to expedite and to go as quickly as possible, we dropped the permanent idea because we knew it would take a much more extensive environmental review.
But our ultimate outcome is permanent housing, so we should have not dropped it, correct? I mean, if our true intent is a permanent, in the end, it's going to be permanent, correct? Why would we?
The additional factor that in 15 years that could make this much different than what we're looking at now is that this is also in an urban village. There's a VTA site that's nearby, and at some point, the densities could go even higher on this site once that urban village begins to redevelop. So there's tremendous opportunity in the future with even more dense housing at a later date. And so I think we'd want to consider at that time what's happening with the urban village and if we could even get more density out of the site given what's happening around it.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you very much. And again, thank you and your staff for all the hard work. I know we've thrown a lot of hard balls your way, and you're working very hard to catch them. And I appreciate all your work with getting in touch with Abode and with educating me on this. I still don't know what I'm going to do, but we'll